creating so many Thank you. You know, I've created about 14 products, and hot Cheetos is the number one. It's $2 billion a year. All the other products are either $500 million or $1 billion. Again, coming from the ghetto without a formal education. So let me tell you my story, and hopefully it'll encourage you, because there's always three things that I want to do. I want to inspire you, I want to encourage you, and I want to remind you. Now the word inspire comes from, again, from the Greeks. It simply means to breathe life into someone. To encourage you means to grab courage and put it in your deepest being, that you stand up and you're never the same again. I want to remind you of what? Remind you of the value that you are, the value that you bring to your family, your job, your community, the value that you bring to humanity. Your value isn't in your bank account. If you want to see how much you're worth, your value is how you serve humanity. The more you serve humanity, the more your value goes up. So for the next few minutes, I just want you to relax and listen to what I'm about to tell you, okay? This is story time. I mean, you guys are always encouraging. Let me encourage you for the next few minutes. So, I grew up in a place right outside LA, Wasatee, California. It's a small labor camp. We lived in a one-room house. The bathrooms were like high schools, you know, like showers and everything. The kitchen was across from the room, and there was a big stove like restaurants. So, you know, it was a big kitchen for, you know, enough for 50 people, and every family had their own refrigerators there. Now, we weren't migrant. We didn't have to travel because it was grapes. It was a winery. The winery was there. The grapes you tend year round. You know, you pick in the summer. August is the best time to pick. So we lived there. I had 10 brothers and sisters. You know, again, it was just one room. And one day, this is during the 60s. You have to understand, okay? I say this. Some of you who are a little bit older, you might get it. But I was never old enough to have an impact on the civil rights, even though I was a child during the civil rights movement of the 60s. I wasn't old enough to have an impact on the movement, but I was old enough that the movement had an impact on me. See, you never understand what you're doing, how it has an impact. You might not see it. So what happened? Desegregation comes into existence. They picked 8 Latino kids from this campsite to go across town to another school because they're integrating. And I remember Mama's getting her oldest son ready for school, which is me. I'm the second oldest of 10 kids. And I remember I'm crying. And Mama says, Chion, ¿por qué lloras? Cry, baby, why are you crying? Porque no quiero ir a esa escuela, because I don't want to go to that school. ¿Por qué no, mijo? Why not, son? Porque todos hablan inglés. Because everybody speaks English. I'm like, Mom, how can you send me to a school where I can barely speak English? People still tell me, Richard, you can still barely speak English. So Mama said, it's the law, you have to go, I don't know. So I remember my uncle, my tío, took me to the corner with the 7 other kids. And we're waiting for the bus. And, you know, I'm telling my uncle, why do I gotta go? I don't want to go, you know. 2nd grade, the kids are. And then all of a sudden I see the yellow bus. And here it comes. There it went, it didn't stop. You should have seen 8 happy Mexican kids. And all the adults were wondering what happened. I remember I told my tío, I know what happened. It's a Mexican holiday. We're not going to school today. And all of a sudden, we heard a loud bang, a pop, like a truck backfiring. And we looked, and I saw the ugliest green bus you could imagine. And I remember looking at that bus, and the yellow bus, and I told my uncle, I've always been like that. I don't want to ride that ugly thing. Why do I have to ride that ugly thing? I want to ride the yellow bus like Johnny and Bobby and Mary and Susie. I want to be like them. Why do I have to ride this ugly thing? They don't know. You know what I found out, ladies and gentlemen? That sometimes you have to understand this. Your past, nothing wrong with your past, good or bad. It's a pillar to help sustain your future. Your past is a pillar to help sustain your future. And one day as an adult, it just hit me, oh, I got it. It was the time, day, and the season where people said, let's put these kids on this ugly green bus, parade them across town so everybody can see they're not good enough to be like those kids. And it just dawned on me, that's what society, well, guess what happens as a child? You take that on. So the title of this message is, all you need is one revelation to create a revolution. All you need is one revelation to create a revolution. What's a revelation? A revelation is something that was always there. It was always there, but it's been revealed or unveiled to you. So we get to school, you know, excuse me, we're doing okay, you know, it's like telling my friends, you know, at the end of this, you know, a little bit, whatever. There's one sound that's international. It needs no interpretation. Every child knows the sound. You know what that sound is? The sound of the recess bell. I knew what that meant. I didn't need an interpreter. Lunchtime. So I remember I grabbed my lunch, and the 8 of us, we all stayed together. We sat down. And you remember what the grade school lunch areas were like? Pulled out my lunch, ready to take a bite. Everybody's staring at me. Why do you think they're staring at me?
We got burritos.
What's a burrito? You gotta remember, it was 1962, 63. The world hadn't seen a burrito yet. It's true. Contrary to popular belief, Taco Bell didn't introduce the burrito to the world. Me and my mom did. But the truth was, I was embarrassed. Embarrassed of being on that ugly green bus. I'm embarrassed because everybody was staring at my lunch. I put it back. I remember I went home, and she's washing dishes. I said, Mama, quiero un bologna sandwich con un cupcake como los otros. Mama, I want a bologna sandwich and a cupcake like the other kids. Because I want to fit in. I don't want to be different. I want to be like them. Mama, the woman in my life, the leader in my life, she was a genius. She said, no, mijo, this is who you are. So the next day she made me 2 burritos. She said, here's one for you, and here's one to try to make a friend. So Wednesday was my burrito nightmare. Thursday, I shared a burrito with a friend. Friday, I was selling burritos for 25 cents a piece. As a child, my first revelation was this. Listen to me. Teach your children this. Get a hold of this yourself. My first revelation was this. That as much as I wanted to fit in and be like everyone else, it was revealed to me. I was never created to fit in. I was created to stand out. None of you in here were ever created to fit in. You were all created to stand out. That's why you can look back on your life and say, how come I was never like her? You weren't meant to be like her. How come I was never like him? How come I could never fit in with him? Because you weren't made to fit in. You were made to stand out. So I realized that as a young boy. One thing I'm not proud of is I quit school at a young age. You know, school just wasn't ready for individuals like myself. Because of my broken English, My test scores were poor, so they always wanted to put me in some type of a special class, and I would beg my mom, please don't, please, I'm just gonna quit. It wasn't that I wasn't smart enough. Listen to me. It's not about a test score. Listen to this. Write this down. It's not about how smart you are. It's not about how smart you are. It's about how are you smart. I may never test like you. You may never test like me. Why is your test more valuable than mine? It shouldn't be like that. You know, we have to remind ourselves there is nothing wrong with trade schools. Okay? There's nothing wrong with those schools. Your job as a purposeful leader is to help people find their purpose. So, I quit school at a young age. I worked at a chicken ranch. I was a gardener. I worked at a car wash. One day my friend pulled up and he was wearing a Frito-Lay uniform. He said, hey, they're hiring at Frito-Lay. And I thought, man, I'm gonna go apply. This is what I thought. Just think if I could get a job at Frito-Lay, I could change the legacy for the Montañez family. I can go from the factory, from the field to the factories. And people say, calm down, it's just a factory job. I'm never going to calm down when I see opportunity. You calm down. Just because you don't see the opportunity doesn't mean there isn't no opportunity there. Opportunity will never come your way. I guarantee you 1,000% opportunity will never come your way. Opportunity is created. It doesn't flow. If you see it, it's opportunity. So I remember I went and I applied, and at the time I could barely read and write. Now, I didn't stay there, okay? I've written 2 books. My first book, there was a bidding war for the rights. That's where the movie was based on. There was a bidding war for those rights. I wrote 2 books by myself, you know, and some words might, so what, right? I did it. So I went and I got an application. I said, hey, can I bring it back? It's like, I could barely read and write. So I went home and I had my wife, Judy. Now, I need to tell you a little bit about Judy, okay? She's ghetto too. She's ghetto gorgeous. And when I was at Harvard a few years ago, a question said, well, Mr. Montañez, how long have you been married? And at the time it was like, I don't know, 48 years. I've been together since we were kids. And everybody in the crowd was like, geez, that's longer than I've been alive. You've been married twice as long as I've been alive. So they asked me this question, well, you know, sir, do you guys still argue? Do me and Judy still argue? Yeah, but let me say this. This is true. Judy told me a long time ago. She said this. Richard, I was with you when you had nothing. I ain't leaving now. Leadership of a woman. So she filled it out. I took it back the next day. And I remember the HR manager was looking at it, and I was so nervous. He looked at it, and he looked at me. He looked at it, and looked at me, and he said, did you fill this out? I said, yes. You have nice handwriting. I've been taking Judy's credit ever since. So I got the job right on the spot. 1976. You know what I thank God for? I thank God for a lot of things, but that day I thanked Him for one thing. You know what that was? They didn't do background checks in those days. I got the job on the spot. You know, years ago, you guys remember when Governor Schwarzenegger, well, he became governor? You know, I couldn't believe it either, right? But I get a phone call from him. Because he had heard about all the jobs. I'm a person that I've created thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs. So he offered me a position on his team, and I said, I'm not going to quit, because you don't have to quit. I said, okay, that'd be pretty cool. You know, still have a job and be, you know, a government position. He said, okay, all we got to do, you know, is I'm going to put you in contact with my government appointee. And he called me up and says, I'm going to fax you over all these questions, right? So we're doing it over the phone, so fax it over. This is a true story. The first question on there says this: have you or anyone in your family ever done anything that would embarrass the governor of California? I'm Latino. Everybody has that one person in their family. And if you say you don't, it's probably because you're that person. So he said, welcome, sir, you passed. All we got to do is a background check. Well, how far back do you go? So I got the job as a janitor. And I remember I went home to tell my grandpa and my dad. And the plant was here, and the labor camp was just like a mile away. Remember, I told them, I told my grandpa, I got the highway. He's like, gas and I, what do they do there? I didn't know how to say papas fritas, I guess. I didn't know how to say lays, because he didn't eat that kind of stuff. So, okay, bueno, mijo, that's great, son. What are you going to do? I'm going to mop the floors, the janitor. Ladies and gentlemen, my grandpa told me something that I believe is the reason I'm successful today. I love my compensation, all that thing, but my compensation was never the reason of who I am. My grandpa said this: when you mop that floor, you make sure that it shines. When people see it, they know that a Montañez mopped it. You know that I took that on? I made sure that the floor was shiny. And I saw that I had an influence. How can you have an influence? You're just a janitor. No such thing as just a janitor. No such thing as just a bus driver. No such thing when you believe in your heart that you're going to be the best. But I saw that I had an influence. People would go into the bathroom spotless. They'd go into the lunchroom spotless. The managers would go into their office spotless. They all said the same thing. Who cleaned this office? The new janitor. You know that I was influencing people without saying one word, just by my work ethics. People need to understand how important good work, great work ethics are. I was moving people just by doing a good job. So there we go. Then a few years go by, not many, and all of a sudden, they shut the plant down. They brought everybody in like this, and they said, you know what, we're going to show you a video. First thing we all thought, oh, we're getting fired. They're going to close the plant down. It's a video with the CEO. Now, understand, the communication there was either a video or a fax. There was no email. So on this video, this new CEO says this: Frito-Lay's having a hard time. He said something that just was astonishing. He said, my leaders can't fix it. I need your help. I'm giving you permission to think and act like a CEO. I was like, wow, I've never heard that. I was invited to the table. Are you ready to be invited to the table? So, it was done, my crew. Not talking to us, not talking to you, Richard, that's corporate stuff. I got mad. They didn't see opportunity. They couldn't see what I saw. I said, you know what, you guys can do whatever you want. I'm gonna start acting like a CEO. So I went home and I told Judy, my inspiration, my teacher. I said, Judy, this new CEO said they said act like an owner. She said, well, act like an owner. I don't know what that means. So the next day I went back and I went to the plant was right here and right next door was the sales office. And I went to the sales office. The first person I saw, I went up to him and I said, hey, will you teach me the business? I will load the truck. I will do all the work. You don't have to pay me. Just teach me how to do this. He was a salesman. He looked at me like, free labor. You can come on your vacation if you want. So he said, meet me here at 5 o'clock in the morning on your day off. Now you have to understand, it was on my dime and my time, not company time. Sometimes you gotta go out of your way, and I know that you do. I know you have a shadow of doubt. My oldest granddaughter is a school teacher, so I know exactly. So the next day, my first day off, I met him at 5 o'clock in the morning. The gentleman taught me how to pull an order, how to fill it out, how to load the truck so we could maximize the space. Then he taught me how to run a route, from store to store so we could minimize our fuel and maximize our time. So when we got to the first store, taught me how to merchandise. Now this is what it was like over 30 years ago. Okay, I'm merchandising at a store. Lay's, Ruffles, Fritos. Let's go to the second store. Lay's, Ruffles, Fritos. Let's go to the third store. Lay's, Ruffles, Fritos. Then I look. A revelation. What's a revelation? Something that was always there, but it's been revealed or unveiled to you. I'm like, this is pretty plain. What about for the people that like spices and chili? You know, they had Fritos barbecue, but that's not a chili, that's a barbecue. Then I look. True story, I look. Remember, revelation is something that was always there. I looked, and I saw the spice rack. I saw the little bottles of spices, the bags of Cheetos, all around here. I saw people buying them. Lay's, Ruffles, Fritos. What if I create a spicy chip? I looked at him. He was kicking back. My trainer. You know, I didn't tell him. You know why? Because he couldn't see it. You know why he couldn't see it? Because he was an expert. Don't be such an expert that you can't see things anymore. When you have an idea, don't go tell the expert, because they'll tell you this, oh, we've already tried that, oh, we already did that. But I haven't tried it. You haven't done it my way. Be careful who you share your ideas and dreams with. So I didn't tell him. Ideas are revelation. Do you know where ideas come from? They come from the Greeks, or actually the word comes from the Greeks. The greatest minds are philosophers. You know the word, I know that you know the word philosophy is just two words that mean people that love to think. So these philosophers would ask this question, what are ideas? And they said this, an idea is that thing in the mind of God. I gotta go to church to get it. No, that's not what they meant. They believed that the gods were in hidden places. If you wanted an idea, you had to go into a different realm, into a hidden place. And I believe that today. Ideas are right there, but you gotta step into a realm and use your visionary eyesight. So I told Judy, I got it, Judy, we're gonna put, she's a wonderful cook, we're gonna put your chili on some chips. She goes, which one? I don't know. So a couple of weeks went by, I went to this grocery store, it was a Latino-owned grocery store, it's called Ranch Market. And I'd go there because the owner knew me, and I didn't have a bank account. And he would cash my check. People say, why didn't you have a bank account? Well, I didn't have no money, so why would I need a bank account? Just cash my check, buy some groceries. So we walked outside, and this is 35 years ago, and there was a young man selling elotes, on a stick, putting everything on, and he was always dressed real nice with his 2 daughters and his wife, always clean. Now he was just a food vendor, but he didn't act like a food vendor. He inspired me. He stood out there like he was running a 5-star restaurant. Ricardo, ¿cómo estás? How you doing? I was just so happy, just like, let me have 2 con todo. Yeah, put everything on. You remember how it was, chile, limon, whatever, But he was always so happy, he inspired me. So I bought 2, one for me and my son, my oldest son. I gave him one, we sat down, I took a bite. Then I took another bite, and I looked at it. And I said this, it was a revelation. What's a revelation? Something that was always there. Well, that looks like a Cheeto. I said something that every great leader has got to say one time in their life. What if? What if I put Judy's chile on a Cheeto? What if I do that? So I ran inside and I told her, I got it, Judy. We're going to put your chile on Cheeto. So she said, okay. I told you, she rolls with me anywhere. Let's go to the plant and get some Cheetos with no cheese, because I needed them dry. So I got a trash bag, and I remember everybody's looking at me like, what's he doing now? Filled up a trash bag full of Cheetos with no cheese, put it over my shoulders. Remember I told you I was ghetto. Just don't forget, Ghetto Ridge. So we put it there, and it took us a little while. We finally got it. She took some to her work, I took some to my work. And everybody said, she came back and she said, everybody told me you have to call the CEO, Richard, because they loved it. I said, I'm not calling the CEO. Now, understand, this is when corporate America was a command and control. What is a command and control? Exactly that. I command, I control. I didn't hire you to think. I hired you to do what I tell you to do. Some corporations are still like that. Unbelievable. They haven't been empowered yet. They're still command and control. So that was my organization. Very, very strong command and control. And she convinced me. I said, I'm not going to call them. Okay, I'll call them. So the next day I went in and I found the phone book. Because remember, there was no email. So every company, even today, had the corporate directory. I know you guys have it. You can find out the president, you can find his number and all this stuff. So I got it. Then I asked the secretary, because they were all in the same room, can I use your phone? And she snapped at me. She said, no, this is only for company purpose, not personal time. What else would the janitor be using the phone for other than personal? But I said, no, I'm going to call the CEO. And she said, okay, use my phone. Now, she told me later, she's still my friend, but she told me later, because when I turned around, they were all right there, watching. And she had told them, because she knew the system. Richard's calling the CEO. He's going to get fired on the spot. Come watch it. So I called. Now, understand this too, okay? I'm not trying to influence everyone. I'm not trying to influence everyone. Only the right ones. Because when it's the right ones, it works both ways. You help me and I help you. I'm not trying to influence the world. Just my world. That's how it works. And you'll see right now. Name is Patty. Picked it up. Hello, Mr. Enrico's office. I said, hi, this is Richard Montañez. Can I talk to the CEO? And she said, I don't recognize the name. What area do you run? Because we're in every country that the government allows, okay? So there's a CEO of Frito-Lay in Turkey, Pepsi in Russia. They all call the CEO directly. Vice presidents don't even call the CEO at that level. She goes, well, no, I work in California. She said, oh, okay, you're the vice president of California? I said, no, I work in Southern California. Oh, you're the vice president of SoCal? No, I work in the plant. Oh, you're the vice president of operations. No, I work inside and side. You're the director? No. Plant manager? No. Well, what are you? I got a little fancy. I said, I'm the maintenance technician. She goes, you're the janitor? And I said, yes. But don't hang up, don't hang up. I saw Mr. Enrico's video, and I created a product. Oh, by the way, I was employee of the month, 2 months in a row. I'm not trying to influence everyone, only the right ones. She was the right one. Another woman in my life. Because when the CEO got on the phone, he was so pumped up and excited. She did all my work. She said, there's a gentleman calling you from the Cucamonga plant. He's a janitor. He saw your video. He created a new product because of what you just said. You know how secretaries can talk to you, right? She told him, you need to get on the phone and talk to him. She didn't ask him, she told him. So he got on the phone, he was just so pumped up. Hey, Richard, I heard you did all this. And he's calling me by my first name, and I was just so excited. And I said, yeah, I saw your video, and I did this. And he goes, I'll be there in 2 weeks. Hung up the phone. 2 weeks, I did it. He's coming to see me. I was floating. Command and control goes into action. His office called the president's office, called the vice president, called the local vice president, called the director, called the plant manager. The conversation was all the same. Who let the janitor call the CEO? Who is this Richard guy? Remember this, okay? Remember everything I said. You don't get promoted by who you know. You get promoted by who knows you. So by the time the plant manager got home, he got it. He came out and he looked at 20 minutes went by. He started yelling at me, cussing at me. That's what it was like in the 70s, you know. That you took that kind of language. Of course, you can't do it today. But back in those days, that's what it was like. He finally said, you realize what you've done? Everybody's coming now. But now I got to paint the place. He goes, you're going to do the presentation. I'm going to do the presentation. I've never even done homework. So I remember I left and I got home and Judy could tell something was wrong. And she said, because I was so worried, I was really upset. Because I had a job, you know, it paid okay, but I had health benefits, I had health insurance. You know, growing up Mexican, I never had health insurance. You were like me, you know what our health insurance, it was 7-Up and Vicks. So she said, what's the matter? I'm gonna get fired. She said, why? I said, because you told me to call the CEO. Typical leadership of a woman, this is what she told me. Calmate, calm down. It's not that bad. We're going to go to the library and check out a book on how to develop a marketing strategy. I followed her. Man, I want you to understand this. I followed the leadership of a woman. She led me there. I followed her. I was so scared and so nervous. We got a couple of books. I found one book that I liked. I copied 3 paragraphs. They don't know what those paragraphs meant, but they sounded good. I put them on transparencies. We made 100 bags. I'm a little bit of an artist. I actually drew all the graphics on the bags. I got clear bags. I went and bought my first tie for $3.50. This isn't it. So we made 100 bags. All I had to do was seal it. You know, you see these clear bags everywhere now. But when I did it, it was a first. It was ridiculous. You can't walk into a store without seeing a clear bag. Here's where it started. That's why I am called the godfather of marketing. Because I'm the smartest? No, because I just get it done. So we had to seal it. I wanted it to be perfect. So how can we do it? Innovation can come from anywhere, any place, anytime. Especially, I'm Mexican, okay, so especially Mexican innovation that I learned from my dad and my grandfather. How can I seal it? Oh, with the plancha. So we got 100 bags and we got my tie, $3.50, put it on, got my presentation, got my 100 bags, walking out the door. Remember I said I wanted to inspire, encourage, and remind you? I got that from Judy. When I walked out that door, she inspired me. She said, Richard, I don't know anybody smarter than you. And I'm looking at her. Then she encouraged me. She said, Richard, I've never met anybody with your courage. Wow. And when I made it out the door, she reminded me. She said, remember what your grandpa and your dad taught you. Remember you're a Montañez. She inspired, encouraged, and reminded me. When you do that to the people that work for you, that love you, there's nothing you can't do. So we went out, I did it. Everybody was there. Got my presentation, it all went great. Questions came up. I don't have time for questions. One question came up and said, well, okay, that sounds great, Richard, but how much market share are we talking about? Market share? I don't know how much market share we're talking about. I haven't read that chapter yet. So I just remember how big the racks were. And I said, this much market share. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how hot Cheetos came into existence today. They said, put that mop away. So as people tell me, you started at the bottom. I've never started at the bottom. I started at the beginning. Thank you. Doctor?
No, thank you. Let's give a big round of applause. Big round of applause.